MyBookie.ag presents The Hurry Up.
Welcome into the Nesson Digital Studio for this week's episode of The Hurry Up presented by MyBookie.ag. I'm Courtney Cox and we've got a lot to cover in this episode. Week 1 is done, so we've got everything from injuries that could affect your fantasy league to the upsets and locks heading into Week 2. But before we get to all of that, we've got Nick Goss in studio to talk about some NFL storylines. First and foremost, the Texans, their quarterback situation, Deshaun Watson versus Tom Savage.
Well, I'm surprised that Bill O'Brien didn't go to Deshaun Watson sooner in that game. They were down double digits in the first half, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And let's face it, the Texans' offensive line is horrendous. They gave up 10 sacks to the Jacksonville Jaguars defense, and they need a quarterback who can escape the rush. When the pocket breaks down, he can ad-lib, do things creatively, and Deshaun is that guy. We saw him do it at Clemson, won a national title last season. He's a much better passer than Tom Savage. They gave up a lot of good assets to go up in the draft and get Deshaun Watson. He's not only the quarterback of the future, he needs to be the quarterback of the now. I would start him going forward, no question.
All right, well, speaking of Week 2 and if Deshaun Watson will start, let's talk about a team that has the most to prove in Week 2. Week 1 brought a lot of upsets, a lot of people confused with their teams.
Yeah, I have to go with the New York Giants. They only scored 3 points against the Dallas Cowboys. Their rushing attack only had 35 yards. Eli looked totally lost without his best receiver, Odell Beckham Jr., who was hurt. And next week they have to go on the road and go against the Detroit Lions. Matthew Stafford threw 4 touchdown passes as the Lions beat the Arizona Cardinals. And if the Giants lose that game, it gets even tougher for them the next 2 weeks after that. At Philadelphia, at Tampa Bay, 2 good teams who could be in the playoffs. So an early hole could be facing the Giants if they don't improve here.
All right, well, let's talk about Week 2 in regards to what game is the best. There's always one game that's going to stick out more than others. So what's the best matchup in Week 2?
It has to be the Sunday night game, NFC Championship rematch, the Atlanta Falcons hosting the Green Bay Packers. The spread is minus 2.5, the Falcons, MyBookie.ag. This is a pretty big game for both teams. The Falcons, of course, hosting their first regular season game in their new stadium. But for me, the playoff implications of this game are huge. We both expect these teams to be among the top 2 seeds in the NFC going forward. And if they're tied at the end of the regular season, this game will be the tiebreaker. And we all know no team wants to go to Green Bay in January and have to deal with the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field.
It's true.
That's not what you want. So this game is huge for both teams, particularly the Falcons, defending home turf and getting that in the playoffs.
All right, well, great stuff from Nick. As always, you can follow along with him. If you agree with him, if you disagree with him, tweet him at Nick Goss Nesson.
Thanks, guys. Doug, obviously the Patriots offense struggled out here at Gillette Stadium in Week 1 against Kansas City, but this week against the Saints should be a good test for them in a interesting way. How do you think they'll be able to bounce back and do against the Saints defense?
Well, they should do a lot better. The Saints defense looked really bad in Week 1 against the Minnesota Vikings. Sam Bradford looked like Tom Brady in that game. He completed about 80% of his passes, over 350 yards, I believe. He had a bunch of touchdowns. So if Tom Brady doesn't look like Sam Bradford did in Week 1, then I think that there are serious questions about this Patriots offense. But I think this is a game they certainly should bounce back, can bounce back, and it's a game that some guys perhaps like Brandon Cooks, Chris Hogan, Rob Gronkowski can start to really show their full potential in this matchup.
Definitely could be a chance for them to kind of get the momentum going, shifting in the right direction. As for the defense, we did see them have their struggles of their own. How can they correct the mistakes we saw out here?
Yeah, I think that it really is just about preventing those big plays that we saw in Week 1. There was the big catch by Tyreek Hill, big run by Kareem Hunt, big pass catch by Kareem Hunt. So I think that that's really what it's all about, is fixing communication, fixing those errors, and I don't think that the Saints can really bank on the Patriots making those same mistakes that they made in Week 1. So they almost have to throw those plays away, because I think they have to assume that those are correctable mistakes that the Patriots will make. I think they just have to be more disciplined, and it's really just 1 or 2 little fixes. I think this Patriots defense will at least get back on track. I'm not sure if they'll be as good as they were last season when they allowed the fewest points per game in the NFL, but I don't think that this is a terrible defense, which they certainly looked like they were in Week 1. I think that they'll kind of get back on track and be the defense that we expect them to be this season. But it is a good test against the Saints offense. Saints offense did not look great against the Vikings, but I do expect them to be pretty high-powered this season.
Well, last time the Patriots did play in New Orleans at the Superdome, they got blown out of the water. That, of course, was a while ago, but one of the worst losses in the Belichick era. But the Patriots right now, 8-0 regular season road streak. winning streak. So we'll see if they can keep that up and just get the season going in the right direction.
Thanks to our friends at Gillette. Now in the Nesson Digital Studio, we've got Mike Cole. So it's time to talk lock and upset, which you just love to do.
Yeah, I do.
So we're going to start with your lock for week 2, Rams over Redskins.
Yeah, this is, again, week 2, also tough. Week 1, really tough. But still, overreaction week. Nobody really knows for sure what to make out of week 1. One of the biggest surprises to a lot of people was how good the Rams looked in week 1. I actually liked the Rams going into last week because I thought it was a good matchup for them going up against that Indy offensive line. Clearly that was a mess. I think the same thing happens this weekend. Washington sacked 4 times last week. The Rams had 4 sacks against Indy. You're getting Aaron Donald back too. Good luck to the Redskins with that. The Washington just looks like a team there could be a lot of dysfunction there. Again, don't want to overreact to 1 week, but they didn't show a whole lot in the preseason. They clearly couldn't get out of their own way last week. Kirk Cousins running around for his life. It seems like a bad matchup for Washington going out to Los Angeles. And again, the Rams with that offense looks a little bit retooled. Jared Goff looked comfortable. They kind of dumbed it down for him. Todd Gurley looks like Todd Gurley again. Goff's got some weapons in that under Sean McVay. So I like what the Rams are doing. I think they're going in the right direction. And 2.5 points at MyBookie seems like a steal to me.
And with a lock, we always talk upset as well. Yep. Who doesn't love a good upset? This case, you're not going to like this if you're a Falcons fan. Right. You're picking Packers over Falcons as your upset for week 2.
Yeah, MyBookie has this one at 2.5 points right now. I think that might shift a little bit closer to game time, but I don't know. You kind of look at this week's slate. There's not a whole lot of good options for an upset because there's a lot of big spreads, a lot of, like I said, the overreactionary stuff. But you look at Aaron Rodgers, a guy who's thrown 7 touchdowns, just 1 interception in 2 games in Atlanta under Dan Quinn for the Falcons. So he plays well against that defense in Atlanta. You look at the last 2 times they've played in Atlanta, Packers have been really banged up, whether it's not having Jordy Nelson, or banged up Jordy Nelson, not having Randall Cobb. Obviously in the NFC Championship, the Packers defense was just a total tire fire. They were playing their 3rd or 4th string cornerbacks. They're healthy going into this game. It looks like they've got plenty of weapons. You kind of look at what Chicago did last week against Atlanta, kind of set the mold, almost 200 total yards of offense just from their running backs alone. I think Ty Montgomery gets involved in the game plan that way, and that Packers defense looked much improved. I don't think they're going to slow down Atlanta to the extent that they slowed down Seattle last week, but even just a little bit of improvement I think is enough for Aaron Rodgers to get a win there.
All right, well, there you have it. Agree with Mike, disagree with Mike. You can tweet him at Mike Cole Nesson, but Mike, always a pleasure.
Thanks.
Welcome back into the Nesson Digital Studios, here now with Darren Hartwell, which means it's time to talk fantasy. After week 1, of course, we've got to talk injuries. Nobody wants to talk about injuries, but someone's got to do it. So let's talk about people's fantasy rosters. For you in particular, we're going to talk about 2 guys in particular. Let's start with Cardinals running back David Johnson, who had a left wrist injury. Bruce Arians said after the game his prognosis same as TJ Logan. That's 12 weeks, so people got to decide what they've got to do with their running backs.
Yeah, exactly, and it is actually just reported that he's probably going to get surgery on it. It's, according to Adam Schefter, 2 to 3 months, which isn't great for the guy who was the #1 pick in a lot of leagues. In terms of internal options, I don't really like the Cardinals running back situation right now. Kerwin Williams appears to be kind of the lead back there, but it's going to be kind of a running back by committee. Andre Ellington is in there too. They have a rookie, Eli Penny. They're all going to kind of split time. They might get another guy off free agents. So I don't really I'm kind of avoiding the Cardinals replacements for Johnson. I'm looking elsewhere. I think Tariq Cohen is the big guy everyone's talking about on the Bears. He almost had the same amount of touches as Jordan Howard, and he had 113 yards from scrimmage in week 1. Pretty electric. They call him the human joystick. So it's a great nickname, so you might as well pick him up. I think he's going to be kind of the hot waiver wire commodity this week.
All right, well, besides that guy, we've got another guy we've got to talk about. Jacksonville receiver Allen Robinson, an injury nobody ever wants to see happen, a torn ACL. Yeah. So what do guys got to do? What do girls got to do if they've got this guy on their roster?
Yeah, it's another tough break for the Jags. Again, I'm avoiding Jaguars receivers as a replacement. Blake Bortles is their quarterback. I think the two big guys actually are rookies. First of all, you have Cooper Kupp on the Rams, another great name. He caught a touchdown pass in his season debut, and he looks like he has a pretty good rapport there going with Jared Goff. So I like him. Another big name who had even better day in his NFL debut is Kenny Golladay on the Lions. He had 2 touchdown catches, made a really nice diving catch late in the game, part of that comeback. Now, I think it's a little more tough for him. There are a lot of mouths to feed in that offense, Marvin Jones and Golden Tate, but 2 touchdowns in your season debut. I think Matt Stafford likes what he sees out of him. I think there could be something there. So at the very least, he's worth picking up.
All right, well, great stuff from Darren. As always, if you want to tweet at him, ask him your fantasy questions, he's always there to help, at Darren_Hartwell. But that'll do it for our fantasy roundup, if you will, for this week.
No more injuries in week 2.
The name of the game is Show and Tell. This is where I bring in objects each week and use it to give you a few developing thoughts I have on the 2017 NFL season. First object I'm bringing in this week is, we got some fiberglass torch wicks here. That's because the Indianapolis Colts might as well set fire to their season if they don't get Andrew Luck back soon. Watching that Week 1 smashing at the hands of the Rams just made me think back to 2011 when the likes of Curtis Painter, Dan Orlovsky, and Kerry Collins stumbled their way to a 2-14 finish. Basically a season that Peyton Manning was out and they just turned into a total train wreck. I think until Luck gets back, that team is in serious trouble. They got issues defensively. They got issues on the offensive line. Luck was one of the ones saving graces until they get him back. Look out in Indy because it's going to be a dumpster fire of a season. So, second object I'm bringing in. Speaking of bad week 1s, I got the Associated Press style book. In other words, the AP style book, and Adrian Peterson. He had a lackluster week 1, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. He's just a bad fit for that offense in New Orleans. I think the Saints are better off utilizing the other running back tandem that they have. Let's face it, Adrian Peterson at this point in his career, sure, he's a future Hall of Famer, but he's essentially a 2-down back. You put him in there, run it on first or second down. He can't do a lot of play action with him because he doesn't catch passes out of the backfield. Third down, it's a train wreck. It's a train wreck. Whatever. So the final object I'm bringing in here is floppy disk, because not only did the Houston Texans flop in week 1 like these other 2 teams, but I'm getting real sick of Bill O'Brien flip-flopping on this quarterback situation. He should have either named Deshaun Watson the starting quarterback going into week 1 or stuck with Tom Savage throughout week 1 and into week 2. Now he set Watson up to fail on a short week going into week 2. That team looks bad, and so does the whole quarterback situation right now, because I think it's been mismanaged by Bill O'Brien.
Well, that will do it for this episode of The Hurry Up presented by MyBookie.ag. Make sure to come back after week 2. Enjoy the games, enjoy your friends, enjoy your fantasy lineups. I hope that we helped you. Come back, Nesson.com. We've got everything you need for this NFL season.